Hi boys and girls, I have some special projects that I made for Easter. Would you like to see them? This is one of my favorite art projects. I cut out a black piece of paper in the shape of a cross. And then I put it on some contact paper. We've used contact paper at school before. It's pretty sticky, isn't it? And then we use our tissue paper. The tissue paper comes in all different colors, doesn't it? Right? And the great thing about contact paper is it's so sticky, you don't even need any glue. You can just take your tissue paper and stick it right on the contact paper. And then watch what happens. You can see all the colors that I used on my cross. And when you put the cross up in the window and let the sun shine through all the colors, it looks like beautiful stained glass, just like you would see at church. Isn't that beautiful? That's the contact paper cross. If you don't have contact paper, you could try it with wax paper, and you might need a little glue with that. But you'll be able to see right through it when you hang it up in the window, and it'll look beautiful, just like the stained glass windows at church. I also used some tissue paper for another cross project. Let me show you. I drew a cross on a piece of paper, and then I put glue on my cross, and I wrapped my tissue paper around the end of a pencil, just like this. And then I stuck the tissue paper right onto the glue, and I filled up my cross. Isn't that beautiful? It looks like the cross is covered with beautiful flowers. This is another project that you can try at home. If you don't have tissue paper, that's okay. You can use construction paper and you can rip it up. We've done that project too, right? Where we take paper and we rip it into small pieces and we glue it on. You can do that too. That would be beautiful. I have one more cross project to show you. Why are we making all these crosses? Because you know what's coming up. Easter, when Jesus rose from the dead. These are all special projects with crosses to remind us that Jesus had to carry that heavy cross and that he died on the cross just for us. But the good news is he rose from the dead 3 days later, right? He opened the gates of heaven, and now we can all go to heaven and join our friend Jesus. Here's one more project that I did. I thought you might like to try this too. Remember that painter's tape that we used on the other project with the egg? I used it to make a cross. I did a strip of tape going up and down, and then a strip going across to make a cross. And then remember that chalk that I used? You know it, the chalk that I used to make the bunny. I went around the cross. Look at this, you can tell what color I started with. I started with purple, and I used that purple chalk and I went all the way around my cross. All the way around, top and bottom. And then I chose a second color. I bet you can tell what color that was. Right, blue. And then I used that blue chalk and I went all the way around the purple cross. And then I used one more chalk color. I bet you can guess what that is. Pink. Right. I went around with the pink. All the way around. And I filled up the whole picture with color. And then when I was done, I took the tape off. Right? I took the tape off, and that showed a white cross. And I thought it was beautiful, and I thought you might like to try a cross project at home. It's fun to do art. And while you're doing your art projects with your crosses, you can think of how much Jesus loves you and how much we celebrate on Easter Sunday. I thought it would be a great idea if we read the Easter story today. Since Easter is coming up, and do you remember what this week is called? It's the holiest week of the year. Right, Holy Week. So let's take a look at our story. On the cover, you can see Jesus riding into town on his donkey. And what are those things that people are waving again? That's right, palm branches. All right, let's get started on the Easter story. While Jesus was on earth, he healed the sick and he taught people about God. So everywhere Jesus went, men and women and boys and girls wanted to be around him. One day, Jesus needed to go to Jerusalem for a feast day. As he made his way into town on a donkey, people were cheering and waving palm branches. There were some people that were jealous. They did not like to see Jesus getting all of that attention. That night, Jesus ate a special meal with his friends, the disciples. It's called the Last Supper. It would be the last meal they ate together. Jesus didn't want his friends to forget him. So, when the food was passed around, he turned to his friends and he said, "When you eat this bread and drink this wine, remember me." Jesus knew that the jealous leaders would take him away soon. He also knew that someone sitting in the room would turn against him. "Who is it, Lord?" asked John, his apostle. Jesus answered, "The one I give the bread to next." And he passed the loaf of bread to Judas. Judas whispered, "Excuse me, please," and he left. There's Judas there. After dinner, Jesus and some friends went to the garden. Jesus knew that he was going to suffer and die, so he was very sad. "I am going to go pray now," Jesus said. "Please keep watch." His friends said, "Yes, Lord," but then they fell asleep. Jesus knelt and closed his eyes. "Father, you can take away this cup of suffering that is to come," he said, "but I will do whatever you want." Then Jesus got up and went back to his friends. Jesus' friends fell asleep, didn't they? They were so tired. Suddenly, a group of soldiers marched up to Jesus. Judas was with them. He ran over to Jesus and greeted Jesus with a kiss. This was the signal for the soldiers to arrest Jesus. And when they did, his friends left him and ran away. Jesus' friends were scared, weren't they? They thought they were going to get in trouble too, so they ran. And poor Jesus is going to be led away by the soldiers. Jesus was brought before the leaders. Some people told lies about Jesus. They did not have any proof, so the leaders could not charge Jesus with anything wrong. Then they asked, "You say you're the Son of God. Is that true?" And Jesus answered, "I am." This made the leaders angry. "This man is guilty of a terrible offense. He says that he is God's son, when he is not," they shouted, "and for this he must be punished." They didn't believe that Jesus was God's son, but we know Jesus is God's son, don't we? So they turned Jesus over to Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate decided Jesus must die on the cross. But first, he had to carry the cross a long way to a place called Calvary. Look at that big cross, boys and girls. We remember the stations of the cross when we see that picture, don't we? The cross was very heavy, and Jesus fell 3 times. His friends could not do anything but look on and cry. You can see what a long path that was up the hill. Jesus died soon after. His friends took his body and buried it in a new tomb. They rolled a big stone in front of the tomb, but the leaders were still afraid. They remembered that Jesus said that he would rise again in 3 days, so they put soldiers in front of the tomb to guard day and night. A few days later, some of Jesus' friends went to the tomb. The big stone had been rolled away. The tomb is empty, they shouted when they looked in. Then they saw an angel. Jesus is not here, he said. He is alive again. So Jesus' friends ran to tell the others. After Jesus rose from the dead, he visited his friends who were happy to see him. Before he left for heaven, he told them to spread the good news and tell everyone of God's love. Because Jesus died and rose again, he earned us a place in heaven. And that's why we celebrate Easter. An amazing story. Is this a true story, boys and girls? It is. Did this story really happen? Yes, it did. It really did happen, and this week we remember that story. It's a special week to remember Jesus' suffering and death on the cross, and the good news at the end is when he rises from the dead on Easter. Ready for our happy dance? All about Jesus rising from the dead. Let's sing it together. We probably know all the words now, don't we? Jesus is alive. It's a happy, happy day.
Jesus is alive, it's a happy
Happy Easter, boys and girls. Happy Easter to your families. I'll be praying for you on Easter, and I will see you next time.